You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. Hey folks, welcome back to Just a Dude in the News on Just a Dude podcast, the news podcast where we cut through the noise without the drama. I'm your host, Nathan, just a regular guy trying to make sense of this wild world out there. We're diving into the top 10 news stories shaking up the United States from September 12th to today, September 19th, 2025. We'll keep it real, keep it straightforward, and remember, it's all about getting the facts so you can form your own take. Grab a coffee, kick back, and let's roll. Our first story comes about the backlash against social media celebrations of Charlie Kirk's death. In the wake of last week's tragedy, conservative activists and Republican officials launched a coordinated push against individuals posting content that celebrated or downplayed the loss of a prominent conservative voice, resulting in over 30 firings, leaves, and investigations nationwide by midweek. Social media platforms saw a flood of reports from groups like Turning Point USA affiliates who compiled lists of posts expressing malicious glee and shared them publicly to urge employers and schools to act swiftly. Companies from Verizon to local school districts responded by dismissing staff, framing it as a stand against endorsing violence in any form, while highlighting how such rhetoric poisons public discourse. This effort, amplified by lawmakers like Representative Clay Higgins, who vowed to use congressional tools against big tech for not banning offenders outright, underscores a growing intolerance for what many see as hate disguised as opinion. GOP figures positioned the crackdown as a defense of civility, arguing that celebrating a life taken in cold blood crosses into moral territory that demands accountability, especially in professional settings where trust is key. Critics on the left, including free speech advocates like Loretta Ross, warned it veers towards authoritarian overreach, potentially chilling legitimate debate in an already divided nation. Yet, with doxing sites emerging to catalog thousands of submissions and filter them by location and industry, the movement definitely gained steam, turning online outrage into real-world consequences for those who cross the line. It's a reminder that words carry weight in heated times, and platforms face mounting pressure to enforce standards without bias. This wave of backlash ties into broader calls for reforming content moderation, with conservatives pushing for transparency in how algorithms amplify or suppress views, ensuring fair play for all sides. Social media users on the right praised the swift actions as overdue justice, while some moderates urged restraint to avoid escalating the very division fueling the fire. As investigations continue, including probes into anonymous posters, it highlights the double-edged sword of digital expression, where anonymity can shield toxicity but also invite backlash when exposed. At its core, this story reflects a societal pushback against normalization of harm, promoting a culture where disagreement stays verbal and respectful, not gleeful over tragedy. It's a step towards reclaiming shared decency, proving that collective resolve can temper the extremes pulling us apart. Homeland Security kicked off Operation Midway Blitz on September 17th, launching a sweeping enforcement action in Chicago and nearby areas to detain illegal immigrants, marking a firm step in the administration's border security push. Federal agents conducted targeted raids on workplaces and known hotspots, apprehending hundreds in the initial days and signaling a weeks-long commitment to restoring order in sanctuary cities. President Trump praised the operation as essential to the America First vision, arguing that lax policies have allowed crime and strain on resources to fester unchecked for years. Early reports indicate smoother streets in affected neighborhoods, with fewer incidents tied to undocumented activity, validating the approach for those prioritizing community safety. Local businesses faced unannounced visits, leading to some grumbling over compliance burdens. But overall, cooperation has been steady as agents emphasize legal accountability over confrontation. Left-leaning critics decry it as a heavy-handed federal overreach, but supporters counter that when cities ignore federal law, everyday Americans bear the cost through higher taxes and insecurity. This isn't about targeting individuals, it's about upholding the rule of law that protects citizens who followed the proper channels to build their lives here. The operation ties into nationwide deportation efforts, with flights increasing and ICE bolstering its ranks to handle the volume efficiently. Trump connected the dots during his UK visit, stressing that strong borders fortify the nation as a whole, backed by data showing reduced illegal crossings since policy shifts took hold. Recruitment drives for more agents frame this as an opportunity for patriots to serve justice for American workers facing unfair competition in the job market. If similar actions expand to other Democrat-run cities, it could reshape urban immigration dynamics, emphasizing sovereignty and fairness in a balanced way. Economically, it's projected to ease pressure on public services, freeing up funds for veterans and infrastructure instead. All told, Operation Midway Blitz represents practical governance at work, rewarding legal immigration while deterring chaos. It's a measured response to real challenges, one that puts American families first without apology. As these sweeps progress, expect updates on outcomes, but for now, it's a solid affirmation that enforcement matters in keeping our communities strong and self-reliant. The labor market delivered a sobering blow this week, with unemployment claims surging to 263,000 for the week ending September 6th. The steepest rise in months and a clear sign of underlying economic strain. August added just 22,000 jobs, far short of forecasts, while job openings plummeted to a 4-year low, painting a picture of cooling demand that's worrying workers and analysts alike. Factors like tariffs impacting manufacturing and elevated energy prices crimp small businesses, leading to hiring freezes and layoffs that hit blue-collar sectors the hardest. Wall Street reacted with a Dow dip, though tech optimism buoyed the S&P and at NASDAQ by Friday, showing resilience amid the turbulence. Trump's economic team attributes the blip to short-term adjustments from aggressive trade policies aimed at reducing foreign reliance, promising long-term gains in domestic production and wages. For the Ohio factory hand or Texas single parent staring down bills, though, it's a tough reality check that underscores the human side of policy shifts. The Federal Reserve is eyeing potential rate adjustments to stimulate growth, but the Senate's confirmation of Steve Mirren to the board signals a focus on steady inflation management over hasty interventions. Studies project up to 1 million low-income households at risk of poverty if tariff effects linger, particularly on essentials like housing and food, urging a recalibration for broader relief. This comes as broader indications like consumer spending hold firm, but the jobs data serves as a cautionary tale for policymakers to prioritize working families without bureaucratic hurdles. Trump's push for deregulation could unlock opportunities, but balancing protectionism with accessibility remains key to sustaining momentum. Social media buzzed with personal stories of job hunts turning frustrating. I've been there myself lately, highlighting the need for targeted retraining programs in growing fields like energy and tech. Bottom line, this report is a speed bump on the road to recovery, not a derailment, reminding us that American grit turns challenges into comebacks. Let's advocate for smart reforms that keep the job engine revving for all, ensuring prosperity isn't just for the elite, but for every hardworking soul across the heartland. Let's go to the grocery store. Grocery prices climbed 3.2% over the past year, the sharpest increase in nearly 3 years, outpacing general inflation and squeezing household budgets from coast to coast. Tariffs on imports like bananas and coffee have driven up costs, compounded by domestic crop hits from erratic weather, turning routine shopping into a budget-balancing act for millions in the U.S. Staples such as bread and dairy followed suit, with no immediate relief on the horizon. This is prompting families to rethink meal plans and seek out alternatives. The USDA reports food insecurity edging higher in rural areas, where options are limited and transport adds extra costs. The administration defends tariffs as a vital shield for U.S. farmers and manufacturers against cheap overseas dumping, with initial data showing stabilization in agriculture sections that were bleeding jobs. For the average shopper, though, it's a painful trade-off, as social media fills with tips on bulk buys and community-supported agriculture to stretch dollars further. Companies like Tyson's Foods announced cuts to high-fructose corn syrups and products, a health plus amid the affordability crunch, potentially easing long-term wellness effects. Subsidies for hardest-hit producers aim to bridge the gap, but detractors argue they're band-aids on a deeper supply chain issue. This spike interconnects global trade decisions with kitchen tables, underscoring the push for greater self-sufficiency in food production, but to buffer against volatility. Trump's team highlights how tariffs foster innovation in domestic farmer tech, which could yield cheaper, resilient supplies down the line. Consumer advocacy groups call for transparency in pricing to curb gouging, while local farmer markets gain traction as affordable fresh hubs. Ultimately, navigating this inflation wave calls for supporting homegrown efforts and pressing leaders for equitable policies, so no family faces impossible choices between nutrition and necessities. It's a test of our adaptability, but with focus on American ingenuity, we'll emerge with stronger, more independent food systems. A harrowing school shooting at Evergreen High in Colorado on September 13th injured 2 students, thrusting the nation back into the agonizing conversation on school safety and youth violence. The 17-year-old shooter, a former student, was swiftly neutralized by on-site resource officers, averting a worse outcome but leaving a community in lockdown and parents nationwide on edge. This incident marks the 47th school-related shooting this year, a grim tally that fuels frustration over persistent threats in educational spaces. Vigils and fundraisers sprung up immediately, showcasing the unyielding spirit of affected families seeking solace and solutions. President Trump reiterated support for school choice and voucher programs, positing that empowering parents to select safer environments circumvents bureaucratic delays in public system reforms. The NRA pointed to the quick officer response as proof that trained personnel with firearms can halt threats effectively, a view gaining ground in conservative circles post-Kirk. Mental health screenings and armed guards remain hotly debated, clashing with gun control advocates, but the focus stays on protecting the vulnerable without eroding core rights. Communities are mobilizing for enhanced counseling resources, recognizing early intervention as key to preventing escalations. This event, amid a string of similar tragedies, demands a multifaceted action that honors Second Amendment rights while fortifying schools as sanctuaries of learning. Trump's education agenda eyes nationwide reviews to identify vulnerabilities, prioritizing environments where all kids thrive regardless of zip code. Social media amplified survivor stories, humanizing the stats and urging collective resolve over partisan gridlock. At heart, these shootings compel us to build resilient defenses rooted in local wisdom, not distant mandates, ensuring our children inherit spaces of opportunity, not peril. Let's honor the injured by creating balanced safeguards that preserve freedom and foster safety for tomorrow's leaders. The United States vetoed a UN Security Council resolution on September 18th calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, standing alone against 14 yes votes in a move underscoring unwavering support for Israel's security amid persistent threats. The proposal also sought hostage releases, but Trump administration officials held firm, arguing premature halts could empower Hamas and prolong instability in the region. The 6th such veto highlights America's role as a steadfast ally, prioritizing strategic deterrence over rush diplomacy that may invite further aggression. Aid to Israel reached $4 billion this year, bolstering defenses while trimming broader foreign commitments to focus resources wisely. Left-wing outlets decried the veto as obstructing peace, yet proponents view it as a pragmatic realism, avoiding deals that historically favor militants over lasting resolutions. Yemen's Houthi leaders' funerals followed Israel's strikes, adding tension, but the U.S. position aims to contain escalation rather than fuel it. Social media reflected polarized view, with pro-Israel voices praising the resolve and others lamenting civilian tolls. But the decision aligns with commitments to counter terrorism effectively. Trump's foreign policy emphasizes strength through alliances, ensuring U.S. interests remain protected in volatile arenas. This action occurs against a backdrop of renewed two-state solution talks, where the veto serves as leverage for negotiations demanding Hamas disarmament. Jewish advocacy groups applauded the stance, citing post-October 7th incident spikes, while it reinforces America's credibility as a reliable partner. The UN's broader dynamics often favor symbolic gestures, but real progress demands tough choices like this to safeguard innocence long-term. In essence, the veto embodies peace via principled strength, backing allies unapologetically in a world rife with tests. It's diplomacy that deters foes and builds enduring stability, keeping American leadership at the forefront. Up next, President Trump stunned observers during his UK state visit on September 17th by designating Antifa a terrorist organization, linking it to escalating left-wing violence culminating in the Kirk assassination. At a dinner with PM Starmer, Trump lambasted years of riots and event disruptions, pledging federal crackdowns to uproot the decentralized network and restore order to public spaces. Raids and asset seizures followed swiftly, with Antifa affiliates scattering as the label enables aggressive prosecution and funding cuts. Conservatives hailed it as a long overdue act, equating domestic radicals to international threats, warranting equal vigilance. Critics claim it chills legitimate protest, but documented patterns from Portland to D.C. reveal organized intimidation that crosses into criminality, justifying this response. Paired with dismissals for anti-Kirk rhetoric, it signals a zero-tolerance era for extremism threatening civil discourse. President Trump's framing protects assembly rights for all, particularly those on the right weary of masked agitators silencing opposition. Legal experts anticipate court battles, but the designation could dismantle safe havens, fostering activism grounded in ideas over anarchy. This policy shift extends to intelligence sharing with allies, mirroring global anti-terror efforts and potentially curbing cross-border influences. Social media reactions are split along lines, but evidence of Antifa's role in violence bolsters the case for accountability. It empowers law enforcement to act decisively, safeguarding events and communities from undue fear. Fundamentally, labeling Antifa as terrorist draws a firm boundary for law and order, allowing peaceful expression to flourish sans chaos. It's a timely assertion that no group is above the law, promoting a safer arena for democratic engagement. Moving to a devastating ambush in York County, Pennsylvania on September 17th that claimed 3 officers' lives and critically wounded 2 more during a standard warrant service, turning a routine call into a deadly siege. The suspect barricaded in a residence, firing relentlessly before taking his own life, prompting widespread lockdowns at hospitals and schools in the vicinity. First responders' heroism shone through, with Trump ordering flags at half-staff and federal support to bolster local forces in the aftermath. This ranks as one of the deadliest days for law enforcement in recent memory, spotlighting the perils they confront routinely. The suspect's prior record raised alarms about recidivism and bail practices, spurring renewed calls for reforms to keep dangerous criminals off the street. Communities rallied with fundraisers exceeding millions, honoring the fallen as pillars of protection in everyday battles against crime. President Trump's pledge underscores a commitment to equipping officers with top resources, from gear to backup, ensuring they return home safely. Tributes poured in nationally, affirming blue lives as essential to the American way. This loss amplifies pushes for comprehensive justice system tweaks, balancing compassion with public safety to prevent repeats. Families' grace and grief inspires, channeling pain into advocacy for fellow officers facing similar risks. Social media amplified messages of gratitude, reminding us support must translate to policy backing stronger communities. These guardians embody selfless service, deserving our steadfast backing every day. Let's transform this tragedy into momentum for reforms that honor their sacrifice and fortify the thin blue line holding back disorder. Up next, the Department of Justice filed suits against 2 Democrat-led states on September 17th for withholding voter data requests, intensifying a probe into election integrity that resonates strongly with conservative priorities. Officials cited privacy concerns in refusing the request, but the DOJ insists transparency rebuilds trust post-past discrepancies, especially in battlegrounds. Trump vocally endorsed the actions against potential fraud, prompting immediate audits in key districts to verify roles. Social media divides saw right-leaning users applauding safeguards while others worried of voter suppression. But the emphasis stays on verifiable processes. This dovetails with red state advances in paper ballots and ID requirements, fortifying systems against doubt without partisan tilt. Broader reforms aim to instill confidence across the board, ensuring every lawful vote carries weight. Legal analysts predict drawn-out fights, but the suits affirm federal oversight's role in upholding democratic pillars. Trump's involvement signals a proactive stance on clear elections as a foundation to fair governance. The push extends to tech audits for voting machines, addressing vulnerabilities highlighted in recent reviews. Advocacy for uniform standards could streamline future cycles, minimizing controversy. Core to these efforts is fostering faith in our republic through accountability, where transparency trumps suspicion. It's about securing the ballot box for generations to come, upholding the integrity that defines us. Finally, UC Berkeley revealed on September 18th that 160 faculty and students were reported to federal authorities for alleged anti-Semitic incidents, fueling debates on balancing free speech with campus safety. The disclosures stemmed from protest surveillance, with one professor decrying it as targeting pro-Palestine advocacy, though administrators stressed curbing genuine hate speech. Jewish organizations praised the move amid rising post-October 7th tensions, viewing it as vital for inclusive environments. Trump's education nominees signal similar nationwide scrutiny to protect all faiths equitably. Fallout includes brewing lawsuits and campus forums, illustrating how global conflicts infiltrate academia. Yet constructive talks could mend divides. The ACLU warns of chilling effects on discourse, but data shows unchecked incidents erode trust and learning. Social media captured raw emotions from solidarity posts to defenses of expression, highlighting nuance in policy. This episode spotlights universities' role in nurturing tolerance amid polarization, demanding safeguards against bigotry without overreach. Proactive measures like bias training could bridge gaps, ensuring diverse voices coexist respectfully. Berkeley's actions advocate equilibrium, shielding expression while eradicating hate. So institutions unite rather than fracture. It's a blueprint for dialogue that strengthens our intellectual commons. Well, folks, that's a wrap for this week's Big Hits. From heartbreak to hard choices, it's been a lot, but we're tougher for it. I want to thank you for tuning in to Just a Dude in the News on Just a Dude Podcast. Remember, if you like the show, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a review, and share it with your friends. Stay strong out there. I'm Nathan with Just a Dude Podcast, and I'll catch you on the next episode.